Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Now, I should probably take a moment here to address something, and that's, well, the most clever and observant among you may well have deduced by now that I'm not in my usual place for recording. Uh, where am I? Well, I'm in a place adjacent to a location somewhere in the time stream, and I'm across the hall. I'm across the hall in the bedroom, and as you can plainly see, we are getting ready for impending baby. We are getting ready for the delivery date tomorrow, and uh, hopefully it should, but hopefully everything goes well. I'm excited. My wife's excited. Well, my wife's ready to have the kiddo out of her, measuring at a nice solid 7.5 pounds as of like 2, 3 weeks ago. So, gonna be a big baby. But aside from all of that, there may be some disruptions in my upload rate and schedule, but I'm attempting to alleviate that particular situation. Next Saturday's episode's already done and in the pipe. I'm getting today's episode done, well, right now. If you're seeing this right now, I have successfully uploaded, hopefully at the correct time, and next Sunday's ideally will be ready to go as well. So, let's go ahead and roll right on along here, shall we? So, uh, but last time around, I had mentioned that I wanted to talk a bit more about loot, rewards, ribbons, pay raises, all the things that you could possibly ever hope to get as a player, and all the awesome things that you could ever want to dispense as a DM for those players that survive and successfully, or narrowly failing, still get to dispense to them, still get to give them different rewards and different kinds of loot. And the thing of it is, though, is that we can just talk endlessly about this because the number of possibilities of different things that you can reward players with is as limitless as the different situations and games we find ourselves playing. And there's something to be said. It is awesome when you find that +5 Holy Vorpal Katana. That's an incredible piece of equipment right there. That's a legendarily made weapon with just the most potent of magics woven into the fabrics of it, into the very crystalline structure of the steel itself. But it's a bunch of numbers and a little bit of gibberish. I mean, we all know what that does, but it's a +5 Holy Vorpal Katana. I mean, what is the history of this weapon? Who made it? Who used it? Because somebody powerful had to have gotten it to this point where it's a +5 weapon, where it's Vorpal, where it has Holy on top of it, which, all those things together probably goes a little bit above what the normal limits of enchantment are. But, still, if you're getting something like that epically awesome, then it's got to have a story with it. And that's what separates just another generic thing that you just have on the list from the pieces of equipment that you remember forever, from the trophies that you have, because there's more to it. There's a story with it, and that story makes it stick out. I mean, hell, I have players that go on about +1 weapons that they had gotten just because it was something that they had earned through story, or something that they had with them from the start that got to that +1 point. And it's something where they go, "Oh, you remember when I used my first weapon, that greatsword that I got to a +1, and I just smoked the ever living shit out of that ogre? It just critical hit, one shot the damn thing all in one go." Those stories like that make things more memorable, make the different pieces of equipment more memorable. And not only that, but it's equipment that the players will continue to use, generally in favor of other items. And more often than not, if they use another piece of equipment, it's because there's a mechanical benefit to it. Like they're fighting an adamantine golem. So the adamantine war pick is going to be more useful to them than their +2 steel greatsword. But they'll always come back to that +2 steel greatsword because they've had it since the beginning of their adventuring career. The pick is utilitarian. The greatsword has incredible story behind it and memories attached to it, which makes us bond and latch on to those things that much better. In particular, I have one player in that high fantasy steampunk setting that I've mentioned off and on through the last couple of years. He's been wanting to upgrade to, oh, it's something like It's some kind of elven great blade. It's a two-handed weapon. It's light. I don't remember the exact details of it right off the top of my head, but it's for this reason. He started off with a two-handed greatsword, which we kind of designed in the likeness of what you see with Germanic two-handed blades, the Zweihanders, and um, he was going to upgrade and just kind of ditch that one, but they were in the course of this adventure where trapped in this pocket dimension, uh, and they came across this unique substance called the ink of creation because, well, some of you may understand the reference as I go into more detail here. They're lost in this old artist's studio where they produce these strange animated cartoons, and there are these different ink monsters coming down at them, and so they're trying to fight their way through this nightmare scenario. They're finding the evidence of city guards who would come in here to try to find missing persons drowned in ink, suffocated, or some that had simply starved to death or shot themselves because they couldn't find a way out. And so they survived by salvaging what gear they could from these different guards, bits of shot, bits of if they had any rations left or water. And not only that, but blotting sand, stuff to help absorb ink, stuff to help absorb moisture was of prime value, and bleaching substances to help and things of that nature to help clean away ink, help restore health, were of prime importance to them. And so gathering these supplies as they moved through this all nearly infinite pocket dimension of this strange twisting hallways, dimly lit inks of this animation studio, they were fighting all these different ink creatures, and the big bad showed up, Zippy the ink demon. So they're fighting this horrible, twisted, hulking monstrosity, and the group's Slayer. It's a combo of Rogue and Ranger. It's one of the combo classes in one of the books. I'll post a link if I can get myself to remember to. Point is, he ends up throwing himself into the fight, and he's wailing away, just taking his greatsword, trying to hack and cleave these bloody gashes into the monster. But it's an extraplanar creature. It's a unique creature. It's something that he's going to need more to hurt. And people are throwing bags of blotting sand at it to try to hurt it and damage it. And they have this ink of creation on hand. And one of them gets an idea. And they start writing a story. And they start writing the story of this encounter. And they're scribbling it, and so they're just flying along, and I kind of bent the rules a little bit as far as writing goes, but they're speaking aloud as they're writing this story, and they write about the desperate bravery that the Slayer had shown and was throwing himself into the fight, but to no avail. But as the ink of creation worked its magics, as the blade was plunged repeatedly into Zippy's body, as the blotting sand collected around the blade, something happened, and the weapon transformed under all of these conditions, as they wrote it out in this particular story. And the blade became a +1 greatsword of desiccation. Now, desiccation is not a regularly listed enchantment, but it's basically, it gets an extra 2d6 points of damage against creatures with any significant moisture content. So humanoids, water elementals, or in this case, ink monsters. And so the blade physically transformed as well as magically transformed, and it had this aura, this swirling aura of dust and just utter dryness around it. So he could destroy liquid substances, and he started doing damage to the monster and actually managed to help drive it away for the later boss encounter. It was an absolutely incredible story and an incredible moment, and he afterwards went, I don't know if I can give this up now. I mean, it's still a great sword, right? It's not like this elven blade I want. It's no. The writer wasn't thinking that. The party bard wasn't thinking about that. They were thinking about the great sword itself transforming into a different kind of great sword, kind of turned into more. It's a great sword, but it has the aesthetic of a butcher knife almost. And he just went, man, I can't give this up now. I think I'm just gonna, I'll collect the other weapon and I'll have it as a backup, but I think this might be my main weapon now. And it still is. And the weapon is subtly and slowly changing and growing as he progresses and adventures further along. How much? Don't know. Can't quite say yet, but who knows what may happen over the course of adventures. But that's the idea right there. He his This piece of equipment that he has is upgrading and is changing. And if you allow your players to upgrade their equipment, if you allow them to change out the blade but keep the handles and all the fittings and fixtures for an adamantine blade, and then they enchant that blade and they upgrade it, to a long sword of speed, a keen long sword of speed with holy damage or fire damage on it, and it builds this legacy. It almost becomes as much a part of the character as anything else. It's iconic, and it's something that can help to readily identify the player or the character as they adventure along, because it becomes very much a part of their own legend as it grows, as they adventure and they survive and they go on to all these other different encounters. But it would also be remiss of me to only make this conversation about combat equipment, about weapons and armor. There's so many other things that we can give to the players that are interesting rewards. You can give them gilded demon skulls or devil skulls. Hell, those things can even be incorporated into the armor. Certainly, there are plenty of those kinds of creatures, different devils and demons large enough that their skulls could be made into pauldrons, added into and incorporated to their armor, as much a trophy as it is a protective piece of equipment. In an adventure through D20 Modern, one of my characters kind of just turned into a trophy collector. One of the first targets he brought in as a paramilitary contractor was a gold Uzi that this forget what he was, but he was the boss of some horrible terrorist organization or gang or whatever. But I took his golden Uzi as a reward or as a trophy. I could have sold it and made a decent amount of money off of it, but he's kept it. He's kept it, and it's on his wall, along with a machete that had just a nice thin line of adamantium running along it, and so on and so forth. He's collected all these different things that stand out and help to make the adventure that much more memorable. And then we also have things like where we could go on and say, give rewards gems mined from different planes of existence. I mean, who doesn't like the idea of rewarding the players with an Elysian sapphire? Something that is blue, but has something yellowish, glowing, and swirling inside of it. Just the Elysian Fields is a place where, the courageous dead go on to. And so, and it's a peaceful place, but it's also a place where people who lived just in lives like that and were courageous in life, that's where they go on to their final resting place. And so the gemstones there will inherently have a piece of that. Or while on the subject of gemstones, why not give them an entire tankard, a stein, carved from a single gem, metal handle, make it gold or silver or platinum? It's certainly a kingly reward, but it is a cool one nonetheless. And then get it enchanted or put an enchantment on it where it detects poison or will filter out poisons, whatever may have been poured into it, and allow the player to drink safely. Or you could even have a pipe carved from a gemstone, something curling and swirling like an imperial dragon. And the end is where all the tobacco goes, and when it's lit, this greenish gem ends up glowing kind of a yellowish color. And you could enchant that further so that it produces a fog wall or a cloud of smoke, or even a fiery breath if they just blow through the pipe as the activation. There's so many different cool things that you can give your players. And we're discussing mostly fantasy right now. We could easily move this on to more sci-fi settings, like, say, Shadowrun. The different BioWare and cyberware that you can give your players will be absolutely incredible. I mean, tweaking and adjusting things in Shadowrun, you want to be a little bit careful because they don't have permanent enchantments. Or at least if there is something that's permanently enchanted, only a mage or the person who made the item can really activate it. You need to put magic into it. The magic needs to be fed into it to activate it. So you can't make Excalibur. You can't enchant a weapon and then give it to a fighter and expect that enchantment to work. You can't give it to the street samurai and let them go, now I can have a fiery blade. If you did that, at best, only the mage who created it could do it. But there's nothing wrong with saying, oh, this is a high-tech piece of equipment, or this magical bit of equipment that you have now, because it has had so much mana flowing through it, because you've put so much magical power into it, it now acts as a device that makes these particular spells, this particular bit of magic, easier for you to use without you consuming so much of your power. Something like that. It's definitely useful and very effective, but not too game-breakingly powerful. Nothing to where some lucky gunslinger out there with a high-powered rifle that has taken the time to modify the gunpowder behind their bullets to give them a little extra oomph couldn't help to kind of balance things out somewhat. But, like I said, it just depends on your imagination. So don't be constrained by just the loot that you find in the books there. Go online, look at different games. Think about how you can translate these things into the games you're running and playing. I mean, you can even get really wacky and weird. One player wanted a unique pet, and we got him a steam mephit, and the steam mephit showed up in this strange contraption. It was in this machine-like workings of copper and brass, and it's almost like a piece of a steam engine that, when the mephit was inside of it, coursing around in a nice, fairly warm place, it would cause different cogs and wheels to turn and light up in different areas. And all he had to do was turn a valve and open it and let it out. Sure, the machine's about 30 pounds, but he was more than happy to start lugging it around with him, put it on a little cart. And he ended up making friends with the steam mephit, which is technically his pet. Well, in the technical sense, it's his pet, but through RP, they've worked it out to where they're more friends than pet and owner, much to the steam mephit's delight. It definitely enjoys more having a friend, and not only that, a friend that's smaller than it that it can carry around. But that's another story for another time. But what do you think? Go on down below into the comments. Throw out your own unique ideas for different loot and rewards for the players. I mean, I'm more than happy to engage on this particular subject, and certainly I love talking about it. Granted, I love talking about tabletop gaming in general, but you've probably figured that out by now. So, leave your comments down below. Even if you disagree with me, hit the like button or the dislike button. I'm more than happy to hear about it and engage in discourse here with you on the channel. And if you did enjoy today's video, go on over here where there are going to be a few more things popping up that maybe you'll enjoy. Or if this hasn't been your first stop, or you just enjoyed the video that much, then hell, go ahead and subscribe here to the Gamers Den and join us as a regular. Certainly we'd be more than happy to have more friends and alumni joining us in these topics and discussions. But with that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.